Welcome, DC fans, excuse me, superhero movie fans, superhero fans, sci-fi fantasy fans. This video involves a ranking of the DCEU screen events, movies, and releases that you couldn't watch on the cinema too. A total of 18 releases. I'm including Blue Beetle and The Flash, and the more recent ones, and also I'm including the Zack Snyder Justice League cut and the Elseworlds story, Joker and the Batman, and also both Batman v Superman editions, the theatrical one and the special edition. During this rather controversial journey of the DCEU, with its piecemeal, at least compared with the Marvel movies, history, and I think that the best feature of it has been, or the main star of the whole era has been Gal Gadot playing Wonder Woman. She's such a great character actor. She was great as Wonder Woman. I've noticed on her other movies that she's a great character actor, and she's always Gal, but she's always very clearly in the role and playing various different characters. And she's closely followed by another female actor, Margot Robbie, as Harley Quinn. But we'll come to those later. First of all, let's get the turkeys out of the way, because there are a few films that are basically turkeys, and even they have some interesting features that make them perhaps worth watching. But the first one, or the number 18 on my list, is one that I've not streamed, I've not bought. I've only seen it once at the pictures at the cinema, and it's one of the worst superhero films I've ever seen, and it's Shazam: Fury of the Gods. And the thing that mainly spoils it is that the two actors who play Shazam and his alter ego, the young man, are totally out of sync. They're out of sync. This kid has matured since the first film, possibly due to the young actor maturing. And he's clearly matured as a character. And when he flips to Shazam, Zachary Levi is still playing the same rather idiotic teenager, making inane comments. So there's an unsyncopated relationship. Perhaps they didn't get to rehearse together enough. I don't know. And the story I found was boring. The only good aspect of it was the family and their relationships with one another. But that was nothing to do with the superhero story. I can't even remember the name of the villainess played by Helen Mirren. And the other good thing about it was the CGI monsters. I was yawning until the CGI monsters came, and they were very good. But the whole thing was a shambles, unlike the first Shazam film, which is rated rather more highly. So that's the first one, which is, for me, a bit of a turkey. Now, I'm not taking into account any sort of box office considerations. I don't care how well the film sold. Maybe it was a reflection on how good the film was, or maybe it wasn't. I don't know, because I think some of these films are great even though they were box office flops or regarded as such. I'm not sure that the information about the box office is very accurate, and I think we may not be getting the complete picture from presented information. But anyway, I don't know. But the next one is the theatrical cut of Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. And the thing that lets, I don't know if you can see it or not, excuse me, the thing that lets this movie down is the supposed highlight or the basic premise of Batman fighting Superman not only is a very difficult concept to realise, but it's not done very well. These two normally intelligent, altruistic characters that we know and love suddenly turn into rather idiotic people, as though they're a couple of drunks and one of them's knocked the other one's drink over and they start having a pop at one another. And it was a situation, they were fighting over a situation which could have easily been resolved by them using their brains, which they failed to do. Nevertheless, it does have its good aspects. Gal Gadot is actually great in this. She elevates the movie, and she's only in it for a few scenes. She elevates it a bit. Anyway, the introduction of Wonder Woman is very interesting. The other thing that I think is terrible is the Doomsday design. This Doomsday creature, born of the Kryptonian amniotic part of the Kryptonian ship, nothing more than a third-rate Hulk. In fact, I think the Hulk could have whooped him into tomorrow. But anyway, that's a digression. When the fight stops and they team up, the film becomes much better. But there are plot holes, there are storylines that aren't explained. And that is why the next one, number 17, is this again, which I've streamed, but the special edition, in which there's extra material. And it makes a good film within the film of story, with Batman and with Superman and so on. But as I said, so it's a bit better than the theatrical release, but the faults are still there that I've just described. Okay. So that's number 17, and the number 16 is the theatrical cut of Justice League, which is a bit more fun than the previous two on my list. There are some good aspects to it, but what lets this film down is, first of all, there aren't enough members for it to be a good Justice League story. And one of them is dead till halfway through, Superman, who was killed basically by Doomsday in the Batman v Superman story. And but it seems to be an attempt to be like Marvel. There are good aspects to it. I think the interplay between the characters in the Batcave is well handled, though it's a bit silly too. But humour is necessary, I think. Also, Steppenwolf's terrible design, like Doomsday in the previous film. Steppenwolf is terrible. He looks really silly and clunky. Obviously CGI. At least I think it's CGI, maybe a bad costume. Okay. So, Justice League. I'm not derogating Ben Affleck's performance. He's a very good Batman, but I don't think he was given very good material. Right. So that's Justice League theatrical cut. And the next one, which is number 15, is Joker, one of the Elseworld stories. The Joker is such a colourful character. It's hardly a superhero film as such. It does connect up with the Batworld, with Wayne Manor, even the young Bruce Wayne in it. And the Joker finds out, or there's it's not certain, but he seems to be Bruce Wayne's son through an affair he had. but I think it turns out the plot's really intricate and really good. There's a lot of twists, and I think it turns out that he's not really Bruce Wayne's son. Sorry, not Bruce Wayne's son. Thomas Wayne's son. Sorry, I got it wrong. Thomas Wayne, Bruce's father. There's a child Bruce Wayne in the film, but turns out that his mother is lying, and she's somewhat of a head case like the Joker. But his story is great, and the acting is superb, and the psychotic gangster thing is thrilling, with the mock humour, the dark humour of the Joker. Well worth a watch, because from this on, these are all good movies for me. So the first three of my list are what one would term turkeys, I think. Right. There we are. Just looking at my list. I've never compiled them all together, these movies, before. Another thing that happened, and it's a kind of spectre of the Watchmen, I think, which was also Zack Snyder's work, which is a great thing in itself. But I think to let it interfere with the classic superhero world is a mistake. Okay, so it satirises the superhero genre. Well, we're talking about extreme violence here, and it's not represented. It's theatrical violence, comic book violence. It's not meant to be taken over seriously. But in the Batman v Superman film, I think the worst moment in all of these films, all put together, is when the terrorist shoots Jimmy Olsen after he's had about half a scene. The first time he appears in the DCEU, and then this guy with the rag head shoots him, kills him. This beloved character from the old Superman comics, the boy reporter, shades of the Watchmen. Okay, what's the next one? Next one is Shazam, which is much better than the Fury of the Gods. And and the two characters, well, the one character with the two forms, the young lad and the superhero, is really well done in this, and the story is good with the wizards and the bad guy bringing the seven deadly sins into the world as monsters. Good fable there. Moral points. The thing about DC, great thing about DC, is its morality, including in the comics. It's a simple morality, but often morality is very simple anyway. Having to do with what it means to be a hero, whether or when it's right to kill, and these sorts of questions, philosophical questions, are manifested quite well in the DC idioms. So that's it. The next one was Shazam, which was number 13. Number 13 on my list, Shazam. And it's well worth a watch. The shooting's great, the camera work, and the lighting's great, and the actors are really on form. And it's one of those unique moments in comic books and of course in films when the entire family of Billy Batson become Shazams themselves and save the day at the end in the fairground. Right, that's Shazam. And The next one is Aquaman, which is the wonderful origin story. Jason Momoa, the hunky Aquaman actor, is also great as Conan in the Marvel film. And there's his kind of sidekick stroke or slash love interest Mirror. You get Black Mantis from one of the great villains from the from the comics, one of Aquaman's enemies, and also the usurper in Atlantis, who Aquaman has to defeat. He has to find his mother. He finds her in a underground canyon style of thing, a world beneath the sea, a kind of pocket world, deep beneath the ocean. After she'd been missing for all his life, and great action sequences, great colour and lighting, all larger than life stuff. And yeah, Aquaman, grand themes. So that was number 14. And number 13. And I know most people would put this higher. Number 13, Man of Steel, which is the first of the DCEU movies, and it really got it off to a powerful start with the great Henry Cavill as Superman. Some great background material about his life in Smallville and discovering his otherworldly powers he gets through living on this planet, having been sent from Krypton in order to escape the destruction of the planet. And also his father's great. I think it's Val Kilmer, is it, as his father? I forget. Maybe Kevin Costner. I don't know. But I've misplaced my copy. I can't find it anywhere. It probably stuck in a cupboard somewhere. And anyway, so Man of Steel. And the reason it's not rated highly, if it wasn't for the Christopher Reeve movies of yesteryear, now decades ago, I think this would rate highly because it's essentially a remake of the first two Christopher Reeve movies. The first movie concerns him coming to Earth. He discovers his nemesis, Lex Luthor. And the second movie is when Zod and his followers arrive with the same powers as Superman. And this is essentially the same story. I don't think it's quite as good. It's dark and harsh. It's the Snyderverse. But it's still a great movie. And the special effects are superb. And I think Henry Cavill's great. I think Amy, what's her name? Amy Smith, is it? Anyway, she's great. Amy Adams is another great Lois Lane. So there we have it, Man of Steel. Now the next one I've also got on DVD, and I've also streamed it. I don't know where I've put the DVD. Because I enjoyed it so much. I like a long watch. It's Zack Snyder's Justice League cut, and this is sometimes people's number one in their ranking list. I can't put it number one because I had to be a bit brutal and think, well, it's too long really to be a movie. It can be a bit tedious to watch at times during it, but there's some wonderful visual moments, and it's spades better than the theatrical Justice League cut, in which I think it was Joss Whedon, another director, took over from Zack Snyder. He had a personal tragedy, had to leave the show, and the other guy was nothing like Zack Snyder, and he essentially tried to make it like the Marvel films, I think, with all the witticisms, and failed. But this is much more detailed. There's lots of different things in it, and the visuals are great, as I said already, I think. And Steppenwolf is much better. He's covered in metal armor, which makes him much more formidable. Darkseid is actually in it. He's mentioned in the theatrical cut, but he's actually in this, which is interesting. There's a whole world of story in this, going right back to the DC comics. The Darkseid, who appeared in the New Gods comic first, which involved Jack Kirby, who defected from Marvel to DC. He invented the New Gods, hence inventing Darkseid, of course. Darkseid became one of the main antagonists of the Justice League, and in the comics and in animation and in this movie. But it is just quite a different story in parts to the theatrical cut. It involves Barry Allen travelling faster than light, the Flash running faster than light, and affecting time, turning time back in this case, which doesn't happen in the theatrical cut. So that's Zack Snyder's Justice League. Just get to which number this next one is. That was number 10. Yes, it was. Sorry about the numbering. That was number 10. As I say, it's difficult. I've never had all these movies in one place before, and it's a bit mind-blowing. The next one is another Elseworld story, The Batman. One thing I'm not fond of is the straight lift from Seven, the film Seven, with the Morgan Freeman Brad Pitt film, which is a pretty straight and stark psycho killer story with the two detectives on the trail of the psychopath. The Riddler, in part, is cast in that mould, but I have to admit that it is a great film, and the Batman character and his development is very well realised. And the one of the great things, of course, is the last few scenes where Gotham City's flooded. The Riddler's planted bombs, and the sea has flooded in, or the river, forget which. But anyway, the city's flooded, and the people are taking refuge. But the place in which they're taking refuge, the City Hall, I think, also gets flooded, and the Batman has to save. First of all, he has to fight off the Riddler's followers who are trying to kill him. And he does it with the help of Catwoman, who is a good character in this. She's a bit like the character played by, in the Dark Knight trilogy, the third of the Dark Knight trilogy, Anne Hathaway plays the Catwoman. And there's a tradition recently in which Catwoman's a kind of sympathetic character. It started with Michelle Pfeiffer, who was had a bit of a crush on Batman, I think, in the Tim Burton movies, movie. But anyway, this one is played by I've forgotten her name now, but I have got a DVD copy of Batman. It's another one that I can't find. I think I've got them all from now on, apart from the ones I haven't bought, that I have streamed. But the grittiness is there, like the Dark Knight trilogy. I'm not over fond of dark Batman, but that's how the character's gone since the early days. But this guy's altruistic enough in this, and he's a really good detective, which is essential for Batman, I think. Right. And Batman has to save all the people who are in fear of drowning or help to save them, and he becomes a big hero instead of the night prowler. Right, excuse me. Batman. Next one is Suicide Squad. That one there. A lot of people knocked this one and put it at the bottom of the pile, but I think, well, Margot Robbie is superb, of course. She carries the film. Will Smith's great in it as well. Captain Boomerang, the Croc, the Joker, played by Jared Leto. Is it Jared Leto? I think so. But anyway, he's a good Joker. He's a gangland Joker. Joker has been played as a kind of gangland figure his time immemorial, but and I think he was that in the original comics, really. Yes, he was essentially a thief with a lot of henchmen and a penchant for cruel jokes. Is Harley Quinn in this? Of course, what am I talking about? Of course she is. She's the main member of the Suicide Squad, isn't she? Yes. Right, so people put this at the bottom of their list. I think it's a good movie. It's a great adventure story, and I love the villainess. Essentially, she's a wrinkly little wretched witch who transforms into a kind of snow queen figure and proceeds to demolish the whole world. And the Suicide Squad have to choose. They have to make moral choices. They're criminals who've been sent on this mission under threat, but they have to choose to make the choice because they get the opportunity to escape, but they have to make the choice to save the world, and that's exactly what they do. But they're returned to jail afterwards by Amanda Waller, who I find a very dark character throughout the DC movies and the TV show. Right, that's Suicide Squad. And the next one is one that also gets derogated, knocked. The Rock as Black Adam, the Justice Society. Great action sequences, great character, kind of ethnic quality. There's this obviously Eastern, perhaps Middle Eastern country. Or it could be anywhere. That's the thing with DC, you get fictional towns and cities. But they're fairly convincing there's ethnicity involved. And it's a city that, a town that Black Adam's sworn to protect after he resurrects after thousands of years of being imprisoned in sleep. The story involves the Justice Society with Hawkman, the first screen appearance of Hawkman, apart from TV shows, and with Cyclone, female character Cyclone, and Atom Smasher, a guy that can grow to a huge size, like the Ant-Man in the Marvel series, but slightly different. And the dilemma is, of course, whether it's right to kill, because Black Adam has no qualms about killing the bad guys, or he sees as the bad guys, and the Justice Society try to talk him out of it, and they succeed in winning him over to their side, but as to whether he will not kill or will kill or not isn't clear. And Dr. Fate's in this, played by Pierce Brosnan, does a great job as Dr. Fate. the magician, the sorcerer supreme of the DC world, if you like. The demon appears and has to be defeated. Amanda Waller has Black Adam. Essentially, Amanda Waller has Black Adam imprisoned again, but he manages to escape. I won't go into too much detail. This has been knocked box office flop, but I think it's a marvelous movie. The Rock set out to make the perfect DC superhero movie, and I think he succeeded. Right. The next one is The Suicide Squad, which is James Gunn's contribution. And of course, he's now busy rebooting DC. So we'll have the DCU instead of the DCEU, reboots, recastings, and so on. But the Suicide Squad is a great comedy, but the comedy doesn't detract from the action sequences. Margot Robbie's in it again. All sorts of other interesting characters. Rick Flag gets killed, who was in the first Suicide Squad movie. Peacemaker's introduced, called Peacemaker because he makes peace by killing people, because he's one of the criminals that's been sent on this mission. There's a featuring of Starro the Conqueror, who was the first adversary of the Justice League in the comics, going way back when. I don't know, maybe the 30s. I don't know. But this giant starfish, which is a bit ridiculous, I found. But the black humour and the acting really makes this movie. James Gunn's directing, of course. He was great with the Guardians of the Galaxies, and he's great in this, the Suicide Squad. Right, the Suicide Squad. And the next one I have streamed because it's only recently been on at the movies, and it's The Flash. And it hasn't. It went almost directly to streaming, so I bought it through streaming. And it's a movie that I thoroughly enjoyed. I didn't understand why not many people went to see it. If I have any criticism of it, there's too much action in it. It's rushed. There's no excuse, because it's a Flash film, there's no excuse for rushing the film. There's lots of story in it. And of course, it's another Flashpoint, take on the Flashpoint paradox from the comics, then animation, and then the TV, and now there's this. So I think the movie makers of DC, have rather milked the Flashpoint story, but this is a very good iteration of it. Excuse me. I think that Ezra Miller's interplay with himself, with his younger self, is really good, even though they're both as annoying as one another. And people have pointed out on rankings like this that Ezra Miller's annoying, and of course he is, but he's a good actor, and he plays the two Barrys very well. Of course, the Flashpoint paradox involves Barry running back in time to try and save his mother. Eventually, he can't, of course. With this, I think the CGI is okay. I like the depiction of the Speed Force and the rather ornate, symbolic representation of the past, various aspects of the past within the world of the Speed Force, if you like, or the time, outside time, I guess. Zod comes again like he does in The Man of Steel, and but Barry's changed by initially saving his mother's life. He's changed history, and this world that he's made is about to come to an end because Zod can't be stopped. Even though the two Barrys, the other Barry also gets flash powers, plus Michael Keaton's Batman. Ben Affleck is also great at the beginning as the Batman, but Michael Keaton's Batman comes in due to the change of history, and also Supergirl. And this for me really makes the film, elevates the film, is just to see Supergirl flying. I think it's marvellous. And Supergirl in action. But of course, I don't know whether this might be a spoiler about Supergirl. Perhaps I shall leave out certain details. But you've got to see this film. It's one of the best DC films. And anyway, they try to stop Zod and fail. And the other Barry keeps trying to save the universe, that the timeline. I won't tell you the details of that either, but when Barry number one, gets back to his own time, he does something else to clear his father first, travels back in time to clear his father because his father's been arrested for the murder of his mother, which he didn't do. And anyway, he managed to save his father. But at the end, he finds out that he's not back in his own usual time, that history has still been altered, essentially. The concept of the multiverse comes into DC here, and it's not a simple concept. It has to do with fixed points, something that you'll find in the DC Legends of Tomorrow TV shows. There are some fixed points of history that always happen, and one of them is the death of Barry's mother. And when he alters the timeline, not only the future of that timeline is altered, but another past also emerges, which is an interesting concept, something I've never come across before. Interesting concept or not, the film didn't do very well at the box office. But as I said, I don't care. I'm ranking these movies on their merit and according to my own preferences, my own analyses, how much I enjoyed them, and so on and so forth. So I haven't got a physical copy of that, I've streamed it. Now the next one is a slightly better movie than The Flash, I thought. And something I've just recently seen a couple of times at the cinema, and it's Blue Beetle, the most recent DCEU film. The last one's going to be Aquaman 2, Lost Kingdom. That'll be in a couple of months' time. But Blue Beetle, I thought it was a great movie. I like the ethnic minority angle of it, with the rich and the poor also. This curious superhero story of this blue scarab from outer space, presumably, which fixes itself into its host. It chooses a host, like the Power Ring in Green Lantern, the Green Lantern stories, of course, but it chooses its host. I'm not sure how it chooses them, but chooses this young man, and young Latino man, I think they're Latinos, him and his family. I'm not sure. It could be East Europeans. But anyway, he the blue scarab forms this armor and gives Blue Beetle various powers of strength, flight, speed, and some form of energy weapon manipulation. But he was a very spectacular character, and there's a computer interface with him that suggests things. Of course, the computer's super efficient, and occasionally instructs him to kill someone, but he stops that from happening. He doesn't intend to kill. Thinks it's wrong to kill, which usually it is, of course. So that's another one I'm recommending, Blue Beetle. Most of these are good movies. As I said, there are only a few turkeys at the beginning of my list, that is. So what's the next one? The next one. Birds of Prey, or the Fantabulous Emancipation of Harley Quinn. Perfectly balances comedy and action adventure. Wonderful characters. There's a kind of human, almost mother story of Harley with the young pickpocket girl, the lass who aspires to become a master criminal, I think, but I don't think she'll ever cut it. And Harley's great. The sequences with Harley, for example, when she invades the police station and uses this sort of comic thing that you can imagine the Joker using to disable the police officers while she goes into the cells, the holding cells, to release this pickpocket girl who's not accidentally, but she's stolen a diamond which has a code in it which leads to great wealth that the bad guy, the Mask, played by Ewan McGregor, brilliantly, is after. She's forced into, Harley Quinn is forced into going after this girl to get this diamond. The girl swallowed it. And there's this comic thing of Harley trying to get her to shit and hence so she can get the diamond, trying different things. But there's also the Huntress, and the whole thing's told by Harley as a voiceover by Harley. But it's about her life, quite a lot of it, and the formation of his Birds of Prey team, which she doesn't join in with at the end. She goes off presumably to be a criminal still, a life of crime. There's a Banshee. There's this superpower of using sound, using her voice to as a weapon. And as I said, the Huntress, who's an assassin, also seeking revenge for the murder of a family by some rival gangsters. And then there's the police officer character. What's her name? I've forgotten her name. She's a detective, but I think she's been suspended or she's quit. And she's a tough character. She's one of the other birds of prey. Harley Quinn, of course, acts as a bird of prey. But they have to save this young girl, essentially, because Hugh McGregor's character, the Mask, is just about to cut her open to get at the diamond. Anyway, brilliantly constructed film, acted, great tone, enough comedy, enough action. One of the perfect movies, I think. The voice overlay harkens back to the 60s Batman TV series and the movie that they did. They used a narrator for that in a similar way, but he's not one of the characters, he's just a narrator. And this is similar to that. But it's Harley herself narrating. Yeah. All sorts of devices like flashbacks and flash forwards, humorous ones. There we have it. Birds of Prey is my number 3. And of course, you've probably guessed by now that my top 2 are the 2 Wonder Woman movies with the wonderful, wonderful Gal Gadot. This is one that's knocked, but I think it's great. I think Cheetah's great as one of the villains, a sort of unwilling villain, unwitting villain, and Max Lord, the guy who kind of absorbs the Dreamstone and gets the power to grant wishes, ends up threatening the entire world. Wonder Woman is faced with all sorts of moral dilemmas. She loses her powers, all but loses her powers at one point, but regains them. Has to fight Cheetah, the great climax of the story, and then thwart Max Lord, who's using satellite technology to grant everyone's in the world their wish. Of course, this means that there's chaos everywhere. Because every time this dreamstone has emerged in history, it's left a dead civilization in its wake. And this is a very interesting moral and even spiritual question as to whether the dangers, or whether it's right, and also the dangers of just seeking one's desires, having all one's desires fulfilled. Is that right? Is it wise to do so? So, Wonder Woman 1984, which gets derogated. I think it's great. Chris Pine's great. She resurrects Chris Pine through the body of another man. And the boyfriend from the first movie during events during World War One. And has to give him up in order to save the world and get her powers back. Right. So that's Wonder Woman 1984. And the top one, and I've only come across one other reviewer who has this as a top one, and I think he's entirely right, and it's Wonder Woman. Perfect movie, perfect superhero movie, heroine movie. Events taking place during World War One. People criticise the villain Ares, but I think he's done perfectly. And the fight at the end is spectacular. Wonder Woman shows her moral self. She gets very angry but has to hold back her anger. She's been deceived by Ares, who doubts the right of mankind to carry on living. And she reasons her way out of it, and she spares one of the Nazi atrocity, not Nazi, German, that's World War II. World War One, the German atrocious Dr. Poison, this female character who invents nastier and nastier poison. Of course, Ares has been whispering in everyone's ear during World War One, causing trouble, seeking to, I think, make man extinct and restore the world to the sort of idyllic garden that it was at some point in the past. Anyway, she defeats Ares. Chris Pine gets killed. Chris Pine's character gets killed. Trevor gets killed. And, of course, in the next movie, which I've just shown you, she brings him back, but has to give him up because, once someone dies, you can't bring them back. Is it right to bring them back if you can? So we have maturity and innocence, great naivety of Diana coming from the island of Themyscira. I don't think she's all that au fait with biological reproduction, actually. Or she seems to know about it, but in a slightly abstract way. She thinks she was made of clay by her mother, whereas in reality, of course, her mother, the queen of the Amazons, and Zeus, the god Zeus, actually conceived Diana and made her into the powerful person that she is. So there we have it. The drama's great, the characters are fantastic. Trevor and his little band of men going to the front. But I don't think it can be made spoilers. Everyone will have watched this by now. But I'll leave it at that. One of the perfect superhero movies in my book. Right. So, number 1, we have Wonder Woman. Number 2, Wonder Woman 1984. Number 3, Birds of Prey. Number 4, Blue Beetle. Number 5, The Flash. Number 6, The Suicide Squad. Number 7, Black Adam. Number 8, Suicide Squad. Number 9, The Batman. Number 10, Zack Snyder's Justice League. Number 11, Man of Steel. Number 12, Aquaman. Number 13, Shazam. 14, Joker. 15, and from here on, somewhat poor films on the whole, though there are interesting things in them. I wouldn't dissuade anyone from watching them, if only out of curiosity. But anyway, Justice League and both versions of Batman v Superman and Shazam Fury of the Gods. Disappointing films. But the rest are really good. Okay, that was a bit tiring. And I shall say thank you very much for watching this video. And just say this is Sherwyn Green. I'll just say bye-bye. God bless. And I hope you'll be around for any future videos. Here we go. I'm going to switch off.